It's the Anfield Wrap in association with The Athletic. If you haven't had the opportunity to sign up to The Athletic yet, please do consider doing so. If you go to theathletic.co.uk/The Anfield Wrap, there's all sorts of reductions on there through us and our partnership with them. There's some fantastic football writing on there. And at this time of year, when you're sat around with nothing to do apart from talk to people who are in your family, there is nothing better to do than to actually read about football instead and try to block them out. Bear that in mind and we'll all get through it together. It is the Anfield Wrap. I am Neil Atkinson. I am hosting this. If you're watching this on YouTube, and listeners, people do watch this on YouTube as well, this will not be on YouTube next week. So the show on the 30th will not be available on YouTube. So apologies to our YouTube viewers/listeners. Hello. It will not be available, so you'll have to listen to it through a podcast app or anything else like everybody else. So we're sorry about that, but we've only got so many pairs of hands in. We're trying to give people some Christmas break, and editing it together is a bit tough. So next week it won't be on YouTube, as all of our normal shows will be on, and you can see all of them if you subscribe and download the app as well. That's, I think, all the hits done very, very quickly. So that's all out the way. We're going to talk about the fact that Liverpool are world champions. I've got Adam Smith, I've got Ben Johnson, I've got Kev Walsh and Ian Ryan. And Ian, first and foremost, how bothered were you about being the Club World Cup winners? And how bothered are you during the game? And how bothered are you now about Liverpool, your football team, champions of the world?
I wanted it. I absolutely wanted it. I think we did it under the lights before the final with Gibbo. And I think going to the semi-final, I definitely wanted to win it, but I don't think it meant everything to me. You know, if we'd have gone out, it would have been one of them. Yeah, you gutted about it, but you're over it quite quickly. But then when you realise just how serious some of these teams are taking it, I think it ups the ante a little bit, and it makes you want it a little bit more. And I think maybe the players felt a little bit of that as well, because I think going into the final, you knew Flamengo were up for it. I mean, listen to Tim Vickery talk about it, it meant everything to them. You know, Klopp said if they go back, they're going back as heroes if they win it. So I think as the days kind of go on and you get closer to kick-off, it starts to mean that little bit more. And then during the game, I mean, any Liverpool match, Neil, Liverpool are playing a fucking friendly, I want to win it. So if you're playing a game where you can call yourself world champions, then absolutely you want to win that football match. And I think now the dust has settled a little bit, it feels good. Obviously, fans of other clubs don't see it as a big deal. And I said that the other day, probably a lot of them are watching Leicester v Man City, and that's absolutely fine. But I think if you're involved in it, and maybe this is a little bit of ignorance on our part in England, that we don't see it as a big thing, when clearly other fans of other countries, other nations see this as something huge. And maybe it now starts to grow as the years go by, and it suddenly becomes something that fans in this country see as a big thing as well.
How were you before? How were you during? How are you now?
I've been wanting it for as long as we've been in it. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, we had the overview show, which got some traction. We spoke about before. And I said the League Cup is dead, as far as I'm concerned, and has been for a long time. And I didn't care about that. Don't get me wrong. I'd have been at Wembley if we'd have been there, and I'd have had a lovely time. But being World Club Championships means more to me. That 100%. And just on touch on what you said there about the Leicester Man City game, 6.6 million watched it on BBC. Apparently, with another 1.5 million online requests to watch it. So that's well more than Sky get for their football coverage. So I think we're in a period. Jamie Cavana said it. We're in a period of transition where the Club World Cup it's growing in importance and it's growing in significance. And listen, other fans are going to say they don't care about it because they're never going to get there. Everton fans talking to me about the Club World Cup is like me talking to Brad Pitt about Jennifer Aniston. It's none of my business. It's none of their business. They're never going to be in it. So what are they worried for? So for me,
it's quite a comparison, Cal, I have to say.
what a reference for the kids that was,
Basically, it's boss being World Club champions, isn't it? We're the best team. We can legitimately say we're the best team in the whole world, and who doesn't want that?
Ben Johnson, you were a sceptic before the ball was kicked. I was with you for the match.
Yeah.
I would argue you'd have sold a kidney to win that game on about 60. Before the match, you were like, I don't care what all the fuss is about, blah, blah, blah. Let's just get through it and get the other side. By about 60, 65, I reckon you'd have done time for filling that ref in. Yeah. And secondly, I think that, it became crystal clear what it was we wanted.
Yeah, before I wouldn't have even gone. I just took them on holiday to Tenerife or something for a week. Said I'd get your feet up. Before I just wasn't interested. I just passed me by. I wasn't asked. And up until kick-off, I wasn't asked. I didn't watch the semi. I just wasn't engaged in it at all. And then as soon as it kicked off, I was like, "Oh, this is a bit feisty, innit?" And they were like into it. And then once that little ming with the Czech hat on, started acting the goals. I thought, we need to win this. And then once the Reds started getting a cob on, Robertson was fuming. I desperately wanted to win. And I think it's one of them post-winning it. You're like, oh, that was a fucking big game. That's great, being world champions, you know what I mean? Like, I wasn't interested in it at all until we were. And then I woke up the day after, a bit of a hangover, and was watching all the videos, all the lads with the trophy and that, seeing how much it meant to the Brazilian lads. And you start thinking, yeah, that's sound, that, actually. And it's a dead refreshing way of watching a final. You don't get the opportunity to not be nervous in a final, ever, in your life, do you, really? League Cup, not that bothered, but... Yeah, it was weird. It was a weird experience, but it was... I mean, it's great we've won another cup. One we've never won before. You know, I was probably the gobshite and everybody else who was into it in the first place. I know, it's hard to believe, lad, isn't it?
It seems unlikely you were the gobshite, Jono. I mean, it seems genuinely unlikely. And yet, here we are, yet again.
Yeah, so it was good. And, it's a good game to win. And, in the circumstances we did, we dug in again. We got the referee was a barn pot. And it's not fair on the referee how bad he was. He's not used to refereeing. It's like Kev with his Jennifer Aniston chat again. It's the same dance, innit? None of his business. But yeah, it was great, and I'm into it.
It's one where, Adam, I think what becomes clear firstly is I think it helps that it's Flamengo, and I think it helps that they've got the song about beating us 30 years ago. It helps that the game becomes bad-tempered. I think an Ely affair that gets the blood pumping. But for me, it also helped. I love that it was on BBC One. Like, one of the great sadnesses for me is that the nation never got to watch Liverpool put 5 goals past Roma in an hour. Because of and I understand why, and it's not a dig at BT, it's just literally the way in which football's gone. But it is a shame that Liverpool have got to 2 consecutive Champions League finals, and none of it's been available on terrestrial television to watch as live. That's just not been there as an option. And I was really pleased to think about that. That this is Liverpool. They're on BBC One. It's Saturday night. The nation's able to watch this football team. And I was desperate for them to win. I was desperate for them to put a bit of a show on. And I think they do that even though they don't stick the ball in the back of the net. I think you get the essence of what this Liverpool team is over the 120 minutes in the end.
Definitely. Well, look, the fight. That's what it's about, more than anything else. The fight they've got, and exactly the same about Robbo, and the fight and all, and him like saying to Sadio, "I'll sort him, don't worry," all that kind of thing. But just brilliant. And that is what this Liverpool team's about: playing brilliant football, but also with the steel to them and not giving up and all of that sort of stuff. And I think and listen, I understand what you mean about people getting to watch it, which is brilliant. But also fair play to BBC over the 2 matches that Liverpool played, that they had the time slightly delayed, so you felt like you were watching on a JARG stream anyway. So that was good of them. And it's great, and it's not. I think it's really interesting. I didn't know the numbers, Kev, that you were saying about how many people had tuned in and stuff. I think that tells you a lot about where this Liverpool team's at the moment, because you forget, I think, when you get caught up in the tribalism and all the nonsense, when that Man City fans are saying, it's not a real trophy, blah blah blah. Well, people who are casually interested in football are more interested in watching Liverpool try and win that what other fans are calling a JARG trophy than they are about watching Man City trying to beat Leicester in what, to basically decide who hopefully is going to come second in the Premier League. There is a massive interest around Liverpool now, and it's really easy to lose that when you think about all of the rivalry and all the nonsense that gets caught up in it, and all people on Twitter and all that sort of stuff. Football fans around the country want to watch this Liverpool team because of what they're doing on a weekly basis and how good they are playing the football, and we were excellent for the first sort of 10-15 minutes, lost it a little bit in the first half, picked it up a little bit in the second half, and should have won it comfortably. Andrew Beasley's piece in the Echo today saying it was basically something like 4-1 in the clear-cut chances thing. We deserved to win it, we won it, and now we're world champions.
It's one, go back to you actually first on this, Ben, where Adam says their first 10, Liverpool are on top, created a couple of early chances. Then what's noticeable is this is where Flamengo put all they put all the chips, all their energy on can they get in at half time, I think, ahead. And when when you're watching the game, that creates a building level of anxiety. When you then either watch the game back, look at the numbers, or think about the game back, what it actually becomes is Liverpool have just about got them at arm's length. They don't create anything particularly tremendous in that period. It's not as though they're absolutely blamming the door down. Instead, Liverpool have sort of got them at arm's length, and you were just waiting for them to run themselves out.
Yeah, it was noticeable, the difference in in what Liverpool had in the tank. Like Liverpool looked at all times, it looked a bit like a Lennox Lewis fight. At all times, he's just on the ends of his...
Another one for the teenagers there, is that?
Flying army. I think he used to go out with Jennifer Aniston, It looked a bit like that, though, long jab, just keeping them prodding away. And almost like Liverpool just like, okay, we'll test them for 10 here. And then when it didn't happen, they just go, sit back in, okay, these can have the ball. But what was also noticeable is they were killing time, whenever opportunity they got. Like the keeper went down pretending he had cramp. Like no keeper's ever had cramp. No keeper's ever had cramp unless they've been in the jail for a week and they've turns up in the morning, do you know what I mean? It's like, that was noticeable, and that was built in. I think they were like, we're going to need to have a breather because these will run us into the ground. We were talking while the game was on, the only little concern, we were like, we're going to win. The only little concern, you said halfway through the second half, it just reminds me a bit of Napoli away, where we had them at arm's length pretty much this year, not last year, pretty much had it boxed and looked like we were going to win it last 10, and then they got a diddle. And it just gave them a little bit of energy to fight on. That was the only worry while you're watching it. But, I mean, they're the champions of South America, whatever they are. And Liverpool, it was easy. You know what, the scoreline doesn't reflect it, but it was easy. We created chances when we wanted, big chances. You know, we create one where we're in the last minute, he's going to score, he gets fouled, and then the referee goes berserk. You know, there's no two ways about it. It was a pen, it was going to be a goal. If it was a free kick outside the box, it was probably going to be a goal because Trent would have just slotted it. And then the referee was like, oh, well, let's just have extra time. Nice,
everyone's having a nice time.
Just carry it on, it's lovely. No, carry on. It was bananas. It was one of the most bananas things I've ever seen.
We'll get to that in a minute, Ian, because it was bananas, and it probably bears discussion. But the way the game plays out,
we just keep saying it's bananas over and over. That's pretty much the discussion.
Pretty much, there is a real feeling with them. I think, Ian, where they were. Firstly, I think they were riled first half in a way we've maybe not seen that often, in that I think that most sides that now players don't try not to rile us up to a point. And I think that the way they came out immediately after half time, and I think from that point onwards, apart from a diddle, you felt as though this is only going to go one way, because Flamengo achieved one thing, which was they really got under Liverpool's skin.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And you do always feel like Liverpool are going to have enough. The fact that we've got loads of quality on the pitch, the fact that they're at the end of their season, so it's been a long, hard graft for them, and it's their final game. The way their season works obviously finishes in December. So you always felt if it was going to get deep into the game and it was still tight, that Liverpool were the side that were going to have a little bit too much. They've got two 34-year-old fullbacks as well, so at some point you're thinking, Mane, Salah, it's going to open up for them. I actually thought first half though, they do quite well to come back to the game, because first 15 it's all us, and you know, Bobby has that chance where he's got to be more clinical, he's got to take that. Keita should make the goalie work when Mo tees it up for him. You know, Trent has the sighter as well, which, you know, if you didn't know any better, you swear it was Gerrard, didn't it? Because the body shape, everything, Steven Gerrard when he hits that ball. Second half, I wasn't completely convinced that something wasn't going to happen, and it was mainly down to the referee, because when you got a referee who's that bizarre, he's given such strange things, you just think it's in the lap of the gods a little bit. So the one where he books Mane for the tango with Rafinha right on half time, it's an absolute fucking shit show, and it's a shambles. And there's other things as well. Keita gets blocked first half where he's played a 1-2 with Mohamed Salah, and it's a great little bit of play, and you think actually he's in here. Referee gives nothing.
He gives the Chamberlain foul. He gives a foul to Liverpool.
There's loads of that happening, Jono. And the other thing I would say is, if you're a manager, maybe you're a little bit concerned about the spaces in the middle of the park, because I think what their manager does, he does a few little tweaks early on, first half, maybe on about 20, where all of a sudden our fullbacks aren't getting quite as high, and they're getting a little bit more space in midfield, they're beating the press a little bit. Chamberlain was a problem, I think. You know, obviously he goes off with the injury, which is really sad. I'd have hooked him probably well before that, if I'm being honest, because I think it was just a little bit too open. And we debated that, and I think it was hard for the manager because he hasn't got Fabinho, he's not really got Wijnaldum there either.
He's not sure about Milner.
Yeah, Milner's come off the previous game, so I felt he would go with the three he went with, albeit I think in an ideal world the manager would have preferred a little bit more security in midfield.
Just to come back to you mention Firmino before I go around on everyone on Firmino, I think there have been different performances from Firmino, I think, across the last sort of 6 weeks. We've talked about him on this show. We really got into it a couple of weeks back. even though he missed the chances, I was pleased with both where he was and how he was missing them, to be honest with you, Ian. I think there's different levels of where the centre-forward doesn't play as well for you as you'd like, and I'm actually quite pleased with Firmino's entire contribution in the end to the game, even though it's easy to say he could well on a different day, and if he was in slightly better nick, maybe walk off with a hat-trick.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I heard the show you're referring to, and I think, you know, Paul Senior spoke about him in quite a lot of detail. It was quite damning at times. I mean, I'd done something a couple of weeks previous on a video, and I wasn't quite as damning as Paul, but I think it's absolutely fine to say that he's been in poor form, and it happens. It happens to every player. Now, some of that may be down to the fact that he's just feeling the effects of a lot of graft, and he's played a lot of football. It may be down to the fact that maybe he just needs to be tested a bit more in terms of, is there someone looking to take his position? And I think sometimes every footballer needs that at some point, just someone who's there who could take your position, and maybe Minamino's coming in and that puts a little bit of pressure on him. I think overall he does okay. I think there's times when he's still sloppy with the ball. He's got to do better with that chance early doors. I mean, regardless of what form you're in, that has to go in. But he gets the goal, and it's a great bit of play. And he does the same in the semi, Neil, as well, where you think maybe obviously he's come on, he's offered slightly in terms of previous games, but he's in the right position and he's not scared to miss, and he gets in that position to score.
I think he plays like a number 9 a bit more in this one, Kev. I think that he's on the end of things a little bit more. I completely take Ian's point about the early chance, but again, that I was buoyed by that in the sense of, well, that's part of what you want to see him doing, and that's part of what we maybe haven't seen him doing as much. And even the way he takes it, he doesn't dwell on it like the one that he dwells on against Watford, where he wants as many touches as possible. I think he looked confident, and I think he looked like a man who thought he was going to score the winner, is almost, I think, what I'm trying to say. And then in the end, it's easy for me to say that because he does score the winner, but that's what I think he was through the match.
I think he's always got that in him, but I still think he looked a little bit short on confidence, actually. And the goal he does get, there was a couple of other ones where I thought he just took an extra touch too many, where a confident Firmino probably just bangs a couple away, first chance, or maybe a little flick or whatever. But again, he's a human being. We're that used to him playing at a level where you're like, where the whole context around him has been, he's irreplaceable. Nobody can do the job that he does. So if he's that good, and he is that good, a drop off is going to be seen, because you're going to be like, oh, we just need you to be doing what you were doing last season. So listen, sometimes that's going to happen. Hopefully this goal is the one that gets him confidence. But listen, I no one wants to be Paul Senior here, but even the goal he scores, he does his best to miss it.
Oh, I know.
It hits the defender. He's got a basically open goal, and he somehow drags it across his body to hit the defender before it goes in. Listen, green shoots recovery and all that, and Firmino's the type of fella who'll be like, just scored the winner in the Club World Cup, and now I'm going to score a hat-trick every game. Do you know what I mean? Leicester will be shitting themselves. But it wasn't the best of performances. The fact that he gets his goal makes it fun.
I think I'm barely getting over nobody wants to be Paul Senior, to be honest, which felt like a bit of a non-sequitur that you just chucked in the middle there, just to slag Senior off.
No, Senior was giving Bobby loads on the show.
No, I heard it. It was just a sentence. Nobody wants to be Paul Senior.
Sorry, Senior.
I'll have his bank balance. I think my major worry with him is, I think, his passing. That's my biggest concern with him, because some of the passing in the final, it wasn't, there weren't even tricky passes he was trying to pull off. It was just like he just kicked it to the opposition.
He gets a free kick for one, doesn't he, second half, where he just literally give it to them, and the referee bails him out a little bit.
He does.
Really
absolutely does. Yeah,
you've been slagging the referee off.
And that's my biggest concern with him, almost, because I think, he's never been prolific for us in front of goal. He's a good finisher, and he knows where the back of the net is, and he scores unbelievable goals at times. But his link up play is the main thing that you look at him and go, that's what he's there for. That's what kind of everybody says you don't get from other sort of forwards that could play there, is the link up play between, and the fact that he's just giving the ball away for free at the minute, that I think when his passing starts to come back, that's when I'll start to think he's back in it. He's always got a big goal in him, and that's where I'm a little bit concerned. I don't know whether he's gonna kind of roll on from getting that goal in the final, because it's not goals that I think he needs. I think it's his all round play. I just think he looks shattered, and I think we during this period, I think we need to try and find a way to rest him as much as we can, really, and maybe Minamino gives us a chance to do that a little bit more successfully than we've been able to in the past.
I think I don't pay attention at the best of times, so when the match is on, £10 a month. I thought he was all right.
I mean, that's fine. It's
I thought
fine.
he was all right. I think if you've got a forward, I mean, I understand what everyone's saying in terms of he's been so important to the way we play, in terms of almost being like a playmaker up front and dropping in and doing all the graft and knitting pieces together and setting up chances and this, that, the other. But actually, when you break it down, his performance, he's scored 1 out of 3 good chances. He has absolute hard lines with the one that it's the post. That's almost impossible for it not to go in. Yeah, he should probably score the first, but I thought he was good. And I think actually when you boil it down and look at his output, most teams would go that sound after you centre forward.
But just on that as well, whilst everyone can have a view on it, and Paul had his view a couple of weeks ago, I don't think anyone's saying that Firmino suddenly turned into a bad player and this will continue forever. At some point he will find his form again.
Well, the question is whether or not Adam's point's valid actually. And that's the key. The key one is is he just shattered because he's had a really long 2019? And I think that's the most important question. It's not whether or not is he good at football. We know exactly how good he is at football. It is he shattered. And I just began to think, he's still doing the hard yards there in extra time. And if we want to talk about shattered, he's a lot less shattered than their lads. And and you can go through this sort of stuff. And I just sort of I was broadly with Jono without talking down my own attention span. In that, I came away from it feeling as though there's been a decent game of football there. He's not hit the heights, but he also then goes and scores the winner. Yeah. So, and that was my thing.
And sometimes the shattered thing, it's not just a physical thing. It can be a mental thing as well. And because he's played in so many big games, the Copa America would have took it out of him, etc. So there's been loads of football for him. Kev's point about the finish before, I get it was a little bit scruffy, but actually the early part of the finish is great because he could have snatched at that. And if you're not feeling that confident, the first thing you probably do is snatch it, but he doesn't. He takes his time and he almost kind of sits the goalie down a little bit and creates that bit of space. Yes, he scuffs it slightly, but the most important thing is it goes to the back of the net. And Adam's point about will it give him confidence? I think it will, because whether you're known for your goals or not, something like that, winning that football match for Liverpool, that's what he's done essentially, that's bound to give you confidence.
Other one who I think is outstanding over the 90, certainly sort of, again, looking back and thinking about it and working through it, is Gomez. It's the easiest thing in the world, we say, Kev, to play next to Virgil van Dijk, that Virgil's going to Virgil and he's going to do is do what he does. But I think that the flip side of that is you can end up being very involved in a game if you're the other side of Virgil van Dijk, because they are more and more, almost every side now is saying, well, we'll go that way because we're not going to get anything out of him. And it is getting clearer and clearer, I think, almost game by game. Watford did it as well. Just go that side, play on him all day, Troy Deeney. You just play on him because there's no point playing on Virgil. You're literally quoted as to why that's a waste of your time. And I think that Gomez, I think he has a really, really good game. I actually think that maybe in the end, this run of 3 that he's ended up having in quite quick succession, Watford, Monterrey, and this one could really stand him in good stead for the second half of the season.
I really hope it does, because he's by far and away our second best centre-half for me. The others have all done good jobs, and listen, Matip's been excellent when he got in. Lovren's done the same, he's been really good. But for me, Joe Gomez is the future at centre-half. And I think that playing alongside Virgil van Dijk, you've got 2 issues. One, the teams are going to target you, no matter who you are, because you're not Virgil van Dijk. But 2, your own fans are going to say, well, any even slight error will be, well, Virgil wouldn't do that. But you can't compare anybody to Virgil van Dijk. It's like comparing people to Messi. It's impossible for other people to play at that level, because he's by far and away the best in the world. Koulibaly's second, and he's a distant second. I think Joe Gomez, as any centre-half really, will benefit if he can get 10 games now and play alongside him. I think you've seen with Trent last season, a lot of teams were supposedly targeting Trent. I think it's what you're saying, more than actual targeting a single person. It's targeting a side of the pitch. And Trent now, when was the last time you've seen anyone get any joy out of that? It doesn't happen, because he's played 50 games there and he's now worked out what do I need to do for them to not be able to target that area. I think Joe Gomez playing 3 in a week, hopefully it means he's getting the rhythm. The worry is, can he sustain it? Because I know some of his last few injuries have been contact injuries and not muscle ones, which gives you the hope that he's not going to get injured again. But if he can get 10 games in a row, I just think by the time you come to the middle of February, we have that break, and when we come back in, people will just be going, well, what are we supposed to do here?
You've seen the value of him, I think, Adam, across the games. Monterrey, I actually think his performance against Monterrey is a little bit underrated, in that Monterrey themselves are a little bit underrated, but also he's played next to Jordan Henderson. He's not playing next to Van Dijk. He gets himself through the game. He takes the yellow card when the one time he gets caught wrong side. He does the practical thing, takes the yellow, goes from there. I think that game, the Monterrey game, this one, you know, I think there's no doubt he's Liverpool's best centre half against Monterrey. I think he ends up probably putting in the best performance in the final at the back. I think he looks to me all of a sudden a lot more settled than he did a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I think after the Watford game, a lot of people were saying, you know, thought he looked really good. I must admit I didn't. I thought he just looked shaky against Watford. I thought you saw the green shoots of what he used to be, if you like, against Monterrey, and I think you've seen the blooming of that, to carry on that metaphor, against Flamengo. I think he wasn't my man of the match. Henderson was my man of the match, I think, but he was right next to him, because I thought he was brilliant, and that's brilliant. It's really great to see, and also it's worth sort of highlighting the fact it was against the team of Snides, because they weren't like naive forwards. They weren't just like lads who sort of don't really know what they're doing, and Gomez is getting a bit of confidence because he's playing against a League One team or whatever. They were very, very good forwards who score a lot of goals in their division, know where the back of the net is, and a proper Snides, and he just looked really, really good, and that's great to see, because I agree with Kev. I think he's the future of our defence alongside Van Dijk, and at the moment, without any other defenders to turn to, the one thing we don't want to do is have the Gomez we had a few weeks ago, where he looks shaky and lacking confidence and everything else. What we want is the one we saw last year before the injury, where he looked absolute prime, and that was the Gomez I thought we saw.
It's a really strong combination of physicality to have next to Van Dijk, Ben. He finds himself, you know, his recovery pace is tremendous. He's very, very good on the turn. He knows how to pull out and help his right back out. He knows where the space is behind Virgil as and when the ball comes down that way. I think all round he does feel like the best possible foil for Van Dijk, and I think he got to see all of that there against in that match.
Yeah, he's the natural. I think out of anyone, he's the one you'd naturally say that's perfect to be next to Van Dijk. He stepped out with the ball really well as well. He started moving. The way they played, they left big gaps to either centre half, and he stepped out a few times when because they were pressing their heads off first half an hour. They put loads into that first half, and he steps out really well and gets us playing. He makes a couple of great recovery tackles. One where the lad's in, he cleans them out. I thought he was excellent, and I thought is more than everything else, just his reading of the game and his awareness of where to be. And I think you can't underestimate it. People say it's easy to play next to Van Dijk because he's so good, but what Liverpool are asking the centre halves to do is actually really difficult. I think they're playing a high line at times. They've got to step. When you're a centre half and you're under pressure and you're not quite feeling great, you don't really want to be away from your goal. When I used to play there, I wanted to be right on the edge of my box, because there's no way anyone can run behind you. You don't really. One of the things that's hard is if you come on back in, you're trying to get to the pace of it again, is trying to play people offside. Like you get a sneaky little forward who just drops on your shoulder and comes back. And I think that gets underrated. What we ask our centre halves to do, it's actually really hard. And because Trent attacks so much as well, it's not just playing centre half. He's filling in that whole right channel a lot of the time, and I thought he was excellent. And I think you just, as you said before, Kev, you just hope he just carries on in that vein. It'll be a test against Leicester, because they've got one of the best at just running that line and being offside, and then he drops in and then he's not. And Leicester will have a plan to try and exploit that space down one of the channels, because that's the way you would envisage them having a bit of success if you were them setting up. So you hope he's back at it. Look, it won't have done him any harm. Clean sheet against Watford, even though they missed, there's loads of chances. Yeah, he looked good.
Other one, Adam's already said, got him down as his man of the match. Ben, Henderson's performance on the night is, I think he's just excellent throughout the whole of the game, and I think he gets the tempo of it. And I think it's also worth saying, we've remarked anyway, whoever, I think Fabinho has done it a couple of times this season, plays centre mid with Keita and Oxlade-Chamberlain ahead. It does make it a tougher and tougher ask, and I think for the 120 minutes, Henderson both leads and sets the tempo for that Liverpool side brilliantly.
He was fantastic from start to finish. He really was fantastic. He's everything you want in a captain in a final. He's physically imposing. He's all about the pitch. He's ticking the ball over. He's barking orders at people. He plays a couple of great through balls. He plays the ball for the chance at for the goal. He was he was great, and we've said it the other week. The biggest compliment you can give him is that no one's really noticed Fabinho. The only absence you've noticed of Fabinho was that Henderson can't play further forward in a couple of games. I think Watford maybe was the one game where you think, yeah, we could have done with Fabinho in there. But I think he's been unreal.
It's hard to think, innit, of a player who splits opinion more than Henderson, which I find strange. I think he's great. I think sometimes when you say you rate Jordan Henderson, other fans who maybe don't think he's that good suddenly think you're saying he's the best in his position, or he's better than Gerrard, or he's better than Souness. I don't think anyone's saying that. I think what I'm saying is you have to appreciate the qualities he brings to the side, both as a captain and as a player. You don't see the captain stuff as much because some of that will be behind the scenes, but what he's doing as a footballer, and you mentioned there about stepping in for Fabinho, Jono, you've hardly noticed it. I mean, in times of adversity, this lad does step up. He steps up and he fucking steps up again. You think of big games, I think Roma in the Champions League, he's fantastic that night. The Barcelona game where he probably should come off, and he's a fucking warrior through that match. The game where Liverpool are trying to win the league and he comes on against Southampton, and you can imagine him just sitting there, student of the game, watching it and thinking, how am I going to impact in this football match? He comes on, he's great. So I think he's once again he's stepped up, and I thought he was brilliant on Saturday. Really, really good performance from him.
Steve Graves messaged me over the weekend. We were just having a little chat, and he messaged me and he said there's probably a number of people between the ages of 25 and 40 where the footballer they've seen most in the flesh live is Jordan Henderson. And that's a really strange thing to think of, that he's probably top three, even for those of us who were going more from 2000 onwards with Henderson, Carragher, Gerrard, in terms of seeing footballers in the flesh. And what that means is, I think sometimes, is that and also he's played the most in the era where Liverpool have been the most accessible to see, whether you're watching on television or you're watching in the ground. And what that means is you end up seeing a hell of a lot of a footballer, and therefore you end up being able to say whatever it is you want to say about him, if you sort of know what I mean. And that's why you've got to be careful, Kev. But as far as I'm concerned, he's turned what was a mildly, if I say concern, and not because of performances, but just because he'd been on the verge of lifting so many trophies for us. It's now 3 back-to-back. Hopefully, if we manage to keep up what we're doing in the league, he manages to lift the other thing. And he ends up almost bestriding the whole decade. It's 348 appearances for Liverpool since 2011, which is a serious number, especially considering in there he had one particularly injury hit season. It's a huge...
Liverpool's player of the decade. We done a show on it the other day.
I believe so.
He was mine.
I think it's
scoffed. Kev was a scoffer.
I didn't scoff.
You scoffed.
I love Jordan Henderson.
You scoffed.
Don't be tiring me with the brush. I just said maybe Luis Suarez is in with a shout, which I think is a fair point.
But did you scoff?
No, did I scoffed?
Listen back, he scoffed.
Yeah, well, there's actual proof on this, so I don't know why I'm arguing. Arguing an idiot, he'll drag you down to his level and beat you with experience. But back to Henderson. The best thing... The best thing about Henderson is every time he gets to the point of no return, he's been to the point of no return with Liverpool 3 or 4 times now, where it's time up and it's over for him. We try and sell him to Fulham, and everyone's going, well, it just is what it is, lads. You've had to go with a big club and it hasn't worked for you. Comes back flying, nearly wins the league for us 2013-14, and if he doesn't get sent off against Man City, we probably do. We've had the latest one has been Fabinho come in, and Fabinho is absolutely world class, the best in his position without a shadow of a doubt. And Henderson has gone to the manager and said, listen boss, I know this is where I've been playing and this is where the criticism come from because he's been in that number 6 role. I can play in this further forward role, watch me do it. And he's gone on to become one of our most important players. He's gone on to play there and not only affect every aspect of the game, he's also had the creativity to his game at the age of 28 or 29, whatever he is. He's one of our most creative players now on his passing. The pass at the weekend for the goal is phenomenal. At first I thought you've got lucky with that one there. He didn't. It was like the pass in the 2005 final for Crespo's goal.
Kaká's goal, yeah.
It's very similar to that. Everything he does and everything, even the way he carries himself around the pitch. You've got Robbo obviously saying to Manny, I'll get him, don't worry when we get him. But Henderson lives that out. He doesn't tell anyone he's getting anyone. The other team, no, he's fucking getting them because he's in the face all the time. He's out. For how many years did we say we needed somebody who would willingly walk around the pitch all game in the referee's ear? It doesn't matter who we're playing, whether it's Watford at home or whether it's Flamenco in the World Club final. he's next to the referee and he's talking the referee through the game every single week while doing all of his other jobs as well. And my dad, my half was saying, he was like, just leave the referee alone, get on with it. I said, you're arguing with the referee now in the 15th minute to get a decision in the 85th minute. That's how these things work. Well, exactly. Henderson, well, yeah, it didn't work out quite well that, I suppose, but Henderson understands that, and he's the leader in every aspect of what we do. And even the way he is with the other players around the club, the way he organises things for them, he's absolutely fantastic. And people still criticising him now are blind to it. They've gone that far now that they're not willing to go back on it, and they make themselves look like idiots.
Well, no one's saying he's perfect, and will he have bad games? Of course he will. Are there things he could improve on?
Well, this is my thing. You've seen him play 348 times.
Are there things he could improve on? Absolutely. I mean, I think there's times where his shooting's got to be better.
Oh, stop kicking it.
He loves that one where it goes right over.
Regardless of where you play on the pitch, his shooting's got to be better. Now, to be fair to the lad, he almost wins the game for us with the shot, but that's like not the norm for him. What I would say is, Jurgen Klopp, I think we'd all agree, knows what he's doing, and he's had ample time to move Jordan Henderson on. He's chosen not to do it. He keeps him in the side as a player, but he's kept him as captain as well. So that's got to tell you everything you need to know about Jordan Henderson, both on and off the pitch. This manager, who we all laud and say how good he is, say he's the best thing since sliced bread, he's come in, he's totally changed the club, and yet he still chooses to pick Jordan Henderson 9 times out of 10. That says a lot.
You thought he was man of the match?
I did, yeah. I thought he was unbelievable. And I think the game was in many ways the kind of summary of Henderson generally, in so much as he did a couple of those ones where he loves it, the lofted pass to the back post where no one's there and it goes out for a goal kick. He did that 2 or 3 times. And if you're somebody who thinks he's shite and you hate him and blah blah blah, that's what you point to. You go, look at them. But it means you've got to ignore everything else he did over the 90 minutes in order to say shite. But I mean, I agree with Kev completely that people are too ingrained now in their opinion. Those people who hate him, they will never think he's good enough ever, and there's no point arguing with them. Good to have John away, because they're flat earthers, to go back to that show. That's what they are. Like they're just people who just you cannot show them any evidence that will ever change their mind. But for me, that was an incredible performance, a captain's performance. He did exactly what you wanted somebody to do in this Liverpool team. Never stops running, never stops closing people down. Brilliant pass for the goal. Just always there. He was brilliant. He was the player that, like, people, United fans think Pogba is. Like, you know what I mean? He was doing everything that you want somebody to do who's at the top of the game. And it's just, he's brilliant to have that personality, exactly as Kev said, to have been written off again and again and again, and to go, I'm just going to keep going. I think I'm good enough. I know I'm good enough. I'm just going to keep doing it. And when he looks back at his career, he's not going to care what Liver 1879 cares about the team or whatever. He's going to look and go, well, I've got all these trophies, I've got all these medals, mate. That's fine. Jurgen Klopp said I'm great. Steven Gerrard said I'm great. Kenny Dalglish said I'm great. Graham Souness said I'm great. They're people who know what they're talking about. You're some divvy on Twitter.
Moving along, Ben, I want to talk about briefly the sub. I think to an extent Liverpool are in control of the game. I do feel like Liverpool are in control of the game when Oxlade-Chamberlain goes down injured. But I think the manager goes with Lallana. Milner in the end gets on, so you do wonder whether or not he does feel as he's had to make a decision there. I thought when you saw Lallana, it made me think of Milner and Wijnaldum, just not. He doesn't fancy them for this. But Milner does get on in the end and looks mobile. But all of that said, I think Oxlade-Chamberlain was a problem. He was just unable to impact the game in any meaningful sense. You couldn't say that about Lallana. I think he comes on. I think he's absolutely tremendous, to be honest with you.
It's funny, innit? Because when he announced Lallana's coming on, everyone in the boozer, it was like, there was a audible groan in the boozer, including, I mean, I wasn't overjoyed to see him pop up off the bench. I wanted Milner because I thought we need structure, and you can sort of half understand Milner not coming on if he's carrying a knock. And I think the other thing is that the manager likes to end important games with Milner on the pitch. His rationale for him not starting the European Cup final was I want him on the pitch at the end. But when Lallana steps up, I'm thinking, oh Christ, and then he was fantastic. I thought he was absolutely fantastic. Lallana, when he come on, he was exactly what we needed. He was everywhere. He was aggressive. He filled holes. I think the problem with Chamberlain was nothing was really working for him when he got on the ball. He was giving it away a lot, but then he just empties his position loads.
I was about to say, Lallana comes on and fills holes. Chamberlain literally created them.
You look at Henderson's performance in the light of having to play next to Oxlade-Chamberlain, and it sort of amplifies how good it was a bit further on again, because he had loads to do. I mean, Keita helped him out and played well, but I thought Oxlade-Chamberlain was really poor. And I think we were referencing before, but you haven't really noticed Fabinho not being there. I think I think if you sat around this table, the one midfield that you'd fancy Liverpool to have to just play the rest of the season almost is Fabinho, Henderson and Keita, and just cut with I mean, you've got, and that's a disservice to Wijnaldum, by the way, but imagine that little three. You haven't seen that very often, if ever, I'm not sure, but that's a three that you just think it would be fantastic. But saying that, Lallana comes on, was great, got us to a position where we needed to be. We looked a much better side once we were playing with 11 men.
I think on the Lallana point, I mentioned it before about Henderson. You can imagine he's a real student of the game as well, where he's sitting there on the bench watching and thinking, if I come on, I need to know what my impact has to be in terms of plugging some of those gaps, and he does that. And I think Lallana's always an interesting one for me, because I don't want to be too hypocritical about it. I probably would have sold him. I would have moved him on a while ago. And the reason for that, it's not about his ability as a footballer. I think technically he's a good footballer. All the skills, all the touches, all that kind of stuff. But his availability over the last 2.5 years or so, he's just not been there when you needed him. And I think that's always been in the back of my mind about just maybe moving him on a little bit. I think sometimes as well, physically he can struggle against some of the big lads, where he maybe move him around a little bit. But on Saturday, you've got to absolutely give him his due. He's come on there and he's really, really impacted that football match.
Yeah, I think with Lallana, I'm with you. I probably would have got rid of him. If that was a game against the Leicester game, I've got no doubt Milner's coming on at that particular point in time, because it's a game against a more, I don't want to say more physical, but maybe a fitter, more intense game is probably the better way of putting it. I think that game there, you referenced before, Neil, about they were shattered by the end of it, and because they had to work hard because we're such a good team. That was their 83rd game of the season, something like that, something bananas they said on the telly anyway. And that's where you want Lallana. That's where he can use the skills that he's got, which the one thing he does lack is pace, but he can use the skills he's got to get into holes. On Oxlade-Chamberlain, he's becoming a frustratingly 2 out of 10 or 8 out of 10, and you need 7 out of 10s out of a player in that position more often than not. You don't have to be 9 out of 10, but 7 out of 10 is the minimum expectation. You've got to be 7 out of 10 99% of the times, and as you said, he leaves holes, but I've just got so much time for him because I know what he can do, and he's been out for such a long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think a little bit of with Oxlade-Chamberlain might be the fact that he's got that much pressure in his own head that if I don't get this right, I think if he could just relax himself a little bit, almost the way Keita does. Like Keita seems to, the way Oxlade-Chamberlain sometimes looks like he's got the weight of the world on his shoulders. Keita seems like, well, I'm my last. I think it's just, I don't by any means think that's what he's actually thinking. I think he's just a naturally relaxed person. Whereas I think Oxlade-Chamberlain feels the pressure, I need to do this and I need to do that. And you know yourself, when you're playing football, the more you try and force and it's not working for you, the worse everything gets. Everything's over it, under it, the wrong place. So Oxlade-Chamberlain, I'm confident will come and be good. And so he'd fit that midfield you just said there, John. Fabinho, Henderson and Oxlade-Chamberlain in behind the front three. Could be a dream game. Could be a dream midfield for some games. So there's loads of other options for him there. And I think this season what you're probably seeing is what we said at the start of the season. Oxlade-Chamberlain and Lallana are effectively becoming one squad player. You'll get 60% from one and 40% from the other, and you sort of just make him one squad player, and that's sound. But I think next season, will we replace Lallana? Probably not.
Well, on the replacement thing, it's interesting both Ian and Kev mentioned, would have done this, and we've just had the conversation about Henderson, is the midfield three that finishes the game for Liverpool in the World Club Cup Championship final is Henderson, Milner and Lallana. And that to me, we talk a lot about the players, and the manager more than gets his due from Liverpool supporters, but I think one of the areas where he maybe doesn't quite get his due at times is the amount of time he gives his footballers and the amount of work he does with his footballers, and the idea that those three, Adam, finished that game, they are the midfield three. They were all at the club when he arrived. Different sections of Liverpool support, including quite literally 2 people just on this show, have argued at different times that they would have sold any one of them, and still would argue they might sell 1 or 2 of them. And yet there they are Liverpool's midfield three that finished the whistle. That the whistle blows, Liverpool are world champions.
You can make it 3 because I've sat in this room and said on a show that I'd get rid of Lallana for exactly the reasons Ian was saying before about the fitness and all that sort of stuff. But it's sort of the reverse of what we were saying before about people with Henderson, and and completely writing him off. I think I'd have sold him for all those reasons, but I'm made up. He's making me look like a tit. But it's brilliant. I want any player I've ever slagged off to make me look like a tit. It's great. Wish more of them would, because I want Liverpool to do well. That's all I'm interested in. And I think I've been critical of the manager in the past for maybe being giving players a little bit too much time. Mignolet, I'm looking at you. Like some people who just maybe he could have got rid of earlier, and maybe was a little bit too willing to kind of keep them going. But the manner in which he's kind of he obviously knows that those players are players who have got the footballing intelligence to change their game. And, if you think of Lallana now, because he's what, 31?
31, I think, yeah.
When Klopp arrived, he was Klopp's general in the midfield, almost doing he led the press. That was the phrase everyone used to say about him, wasn't it? He led the press. And then he came on at the weekend and he was playing a totally different way to what we've seen from him in the past. It wasn't just about pressing, it was about doing so much more than that. And Klopp knows that he's got the intelligence to do that, to learn, to develop. And that's brilliant, and that's all any of us really want to see, because at the end of it we lifted a big shiny thing, and that's great, and more of that, and the more of these players who can kind of come in and say, I know what the manager wants from me, I'm going to do it. Brilliant. And like another one to add to the list is Origi, and I think Origi still frustrates in many ways. There's still an edge of him to that, but I'd have sold him in the summer because I thought we're never going to get more money for him than we are right now. And then he's had in the derby, he was unbelievable. He was virtually unplayable in the derby. So there is just that kind of the manager knows the players that can do what he wants them to do and can learn and develop. And I think Lallana, Milner, Henderson, they're prime examples of that, and how fantastic for them, and what a justification for the manager that they were the three people on the midfield at the end who saw the game out.
I think one of the things about Lallana is that you sort of do not, it comes as a surprise to me, is that I think Klopp referenced it at the start of the season, and that Lallana is one of the key figures in the dressing room. In terms of leading, the sort of the attitude, and that come as a complete shock to me when I read it. I was like, you just wouldn't put them together, but then it makes sense. He's best mates with Henderson, and I think it's easy to underestimate that. And I think that's a very I think that's a very important thing that you need in any dressing room. But then it's also, imagine not really playing but still doing that role. That must be dead hard. Do you know what I mean? So I think you need to give him his due. The fact that he can still, he gets injured, he doesn't really get much of a goal last year, and he's still able to form an influence over this unbelievable group of players. That says loads about what the manager's created. It also says some stuff about his qualities and his, that might not seem apparent when you watch him play footy. And I think the manager... What the manager's brilliant at is convincing players that, look, if you do all the right things, you'll get your opportunity. If you do all the right things, we've got this deal. And I think the one thing he can be thingies of sometimes now and again, Klopp, is that maybe he's a little bit. You just mentioned it before. He may be a little bit too loyal to some players. But then you look what's happening there, and Lallana's now got that.
It's almost the price of doing business, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you're going to, you know what I mean, that if you're going to demand absolute loyalty and absolute commitment, and then you get absolute loyalty and absolute commitment, then there's going to be a payoff the other way. And every now and again, it might end up that you're a bit too loyal for the player. But look at it right now. We've just won the Champions League, we've just won the Super Cup, we've won the Club World Cup, and we've drawn one game in the league all season and won all the others.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And if you're in that group, whoever you are in that group of players, or you're outside and you're talking to like players who play in the national team with you, and Liverpool may be interested, you've got to be some kind of gobshite who wouldn't want to go and be a part of a team that functions that way. Shaqiri doesn't play, bang, plays the derby out of nowhere, and is able to perform at a level that you would think, that's crazy. He hasn't played for 6 weeks. How's he able to do that? So they've got this atmosphere around this side. And, you look at Lallana now, he's had choices to make in the summer. He could have left. He asked, he got interviewed and he said, are you going to leave? And he was like, why would I leave? We just won the European Cup. What's the matter with you? Why would I ever leave here? I would never choose to leave. And look at the payoff he's had. He's just come on in the World Club, World Final, whatever the fucking thing is. And he's played a big role in helping Liverpool win it.
He's also already on 12 appearances this season. 2 seasons ago 15, last season 16, that's all comps. So at this point, from his point of view, he's able to say, well, I'm getting more games than I got this time last season. I'm turning up and I'm getting the opportunity.
The manager given the Derby game as well.
Yeah.
And that's a big one. So
and he's getting one of the next 3.
Yeah.
He's starting one of the next 3, Lallana. I'd be absolutely amazed if he doesn't. And then again, when every game counts, then you're able to feel as though you played your part.
It's clever by the manager, because they used to always say about Ferguson, I was keeping all those lads happy. I was keeping those 4 strikers happy. Well, he keeps them happy because he gives them big games and he does it at the right times as well. And Jurgen Klopp's doing something similar, but he's managing a squad. They all want to play, but yet they'll have seen people like Daniel Sturridge go out on loan and it go to shit basically, and think, well, I don't want to do that. I'd rather stay here and get 10, 12, 15 games against good quality opposition, pick up a couple of trophies along the way. Yeah, that'll do for me. Ferguson was the master at it.
All right then, move ourselves. By the way, the referee was bananas. Everyone all in? Just do it quick.
Bananas.
No, I think you're being very unfair. Listen, I think the FA are cowards because FIFA have just shown them there that you can pick a fella from a raffle to referee a major match and it's fine. So I don't know what you're all talking about. He's won a competition, he's done the best that he can, and he's getting pelters from everyone.
Get off his back.
Unbelievable.
Get off his back. Yeah, absolutely bananas.
We can't say for Hall when Anthony Taylor's talking about the gaff.
That was outrageous.
That
I'm able to watch
When
that. It's like a busy watching someone walk up and hit someone on the head with an hammer and the rest of the fella on the floor with the hole in his head. You dickhead, you got in the way.
that was bananas. Like Gazaniga, why didn't he come out and catch the ball? Like that. What's this? Fucking flying.
It's like, that's a foul on the goalie, that, honestly. Fuck off.
I loved Martin Tyler bleating away. Like, is this harsh on Anthony Taylor that his decisions are being reviewed? Now he's going to lose some confidence in himself. I honestly felt like going to Sky Studio and grabbing Martin Tyler and saying, lad, he's been fucking shite for 5 years. He's the second highest rated ref in the country alongside Michael Oliver. He's not fit to lace Michael Oliver's boots. Anyway, moving forward to talk about the Leicester game, to have a chat about the Leicester game at this stage of proceedings. It's one where they've just got beat by City, Kev. They're currently second in the table. Make a pretty strong argument they've been the second best team in the country so far this season, in all honesty. It is them or City. We know City can hit the heights, but Leicester have been doing it week in, week out. Really strong defensive record as well. Always dangerous. It's pretty much as tough a game as Liverpool could have coming back from Qatar. It really is. But it also feels like a game where if Liverpool get out of it with a positive result at this stage of this season, at this time, in this moment, I don't want to say everything's on the line because that's ridiculous. It's not the case, but it will feel like such a game to win.
Everything's on the line if we do win, but we're in a fortunate position that we can make this game absolutely enormous by winning it. But if we don't, we can say, well, we're still 1,000 points clear or whatever we'll be, you know what I mean? Leicester, this game is at the end of a 3-game
It's hard.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah, and they're not used to playing like that, and that's one of Brendan Rodgers' strengths. So if we can knock them out of the title race on Thursday as we play them, it's massive, because Rodgers has proved before with Liverpool that second half of the season where he's got a week between games and he's going against the rival that's playing Wednesday, Saturday, Wednesday, Sunday, whatever it is, he can do that. But them dropping 2 points against Norwich at home, then getting beat by City, if we then go and beat them, it's got to knock the stuffing out of them now, hasn't it? The mad thing about this game is it could finish at any scoreline. It's possible that they could score 3 against us. It's quite conceivable that we could go there and win 2-0, no problems. We could easily get a draw. It's a massive game, but it's massive for them. it's more massive for them because
stop saying massive.
Massive. It's a massive game. It's
fucking passage.
Fucking box that lad, didn't you?
Massively. Adam, I think it is just of such consequence if Liverpool win it. It really is.
You just said massive.
Sorry. It's of such consequence if Liverpool win it. If Liverpool win it, it means that they've put themselves 13 points clear of Leicester. Let's City have then got to go to Wolves the following night, which is not an easy game. Back them to win it, but it's not an easy game. And they'll be, it's then, as I say, 13 points to Leicester, 11 points to City. Not hit the turn yet, and there is a hell of a long way to go, but at some sort of point, the games where you feel as though Liverpool could drop points, begin to become fewer in number, and even the ones where you feel as Liverpool could get beat are fewer in number. This is probably our most likely get beat game, certainly until we go the Etihad, but maybe from now until the end of the campaign.
Yeah, it's massive.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's there's a lot on it, and I think that's another reason why winning on Saturday makes a difference, because your legs feel an awful lot heavier if you haven't. If you've gone all that way, played that game, played extra time, and then you haven't won it, your legs feel heavier and you feel like, oh friggin' hell, is this the moment the season starts to fall apart? But by winning it, they're on Alibaba Cloud 9 or whatever it was that Salah won the trophy for, and they're feeling they'll be feeling good about themselves. They'll be feeling invincible is what they'll be feeling, and they'll be coming into this and going, yeah, it was at the Etihad, all those things, but City beat them quite comfortably in the end, and we're better than City. We think we're much better than them, so we've got the ability to go there and win this as well. Klopp, I think, will almost certainly mix it up. I don't think it'll be a starting 11 quite as mad as the derby, but I think there'll be a couple of changes in there, and I think that it's a chance to say Leicester are none of our business now for the rest of the season. City are the only ones that are, and if we win our game in hand, they're as far away from us as they are. And it's basically a chance to say, we can lose the title, but nobody else can win it. That's what it is. It comes down to saying the only reason we don't win this title is if we fall apart in the closing stages of the season, because we're so far ahead of everybody else that the rate they will have to go at would mean that they basically can't put a foot wrong, and we can lose like 3 games and still win it. So we would have to have an absolute implosion to not win the title if we beat them, and that's a chance to be really, really happy with where we're at, isn't it, for the Christmas period? I
think it's a huge game for both teams, and it's also slightly it's hard to like, you look at Leicester and you think, right, well, they've had 3 hard games. You know, they've put minutes in against Everton, which was a big game for them. They've then gone to City.
Took it very seriously. They didn't need the selections in there. Yeah. He plays both full backs. He plays Vardy.
So he's gone full pelt.
Maddison.
I think that shows you.
Shows you that he's thinking top 4 in a cup.
Yes, exactly. And I think they then go to City and get a legging. You know, they go 1-0 up and then they get legged. And De Bruyne is finding space all over the pitch. And they're creating chances at will, City, and they run them ragged. And that's not a nice place to go and run if you've just ran for 90 minutes. Then the emotions are pens on the, in the midweek before. It's a funny game to assess, because you'd say, well, Liverpool probably had the easier thing, even though they've gone and done a World Cup.
100% easier. 100%. The World Club job has worked in our favour in terms of freshness. Yeah,
and we created an illness for Van Dijk, which didn't exist. Just have a few days off. Put your feet up.
He wants to do an interview at Robbo, didn't he?
Do you know what I mean? We've had that ability to almost have a warm weather training camp without having any time off. Whereas they've had 3, graft games, and then they're coming to play Liverpool, the best team in the league. And it's their biggest game, and you just wonder how the game plays if Liverpool score early. The psychological damage that'll do to them, how tired they'll be.
You'd also think, let's be honest about this, you just said there about Rodgers, Ben. He's nothing. I mean, always the thing that used to drive me mad about Rodgers, when people would say he's not pragmatic. Oh, it was clap. But people who say he's not pragmatic, he's a very pragmatic manager in that he knows, I've had a little look, and their next 3, because I'll include the FA Cup, West Ham away, Newcastle away, and then Wigan at home in the FA Cup. And I agree with you that if Liverpool can get a foothold in the game, get one, maybe even get another, I think there's a point where Rodgers goes, you know what, I'm going to tell these we cut our losses here. We walk away. We're very sensible. We've been sensible all season. We're very sensible lads. We've got the 2 legs in the League Cup to come, and then there's 6 points there for us next 2 matches, and we'll have those 6 points rather than try and beat these.
I wonder if he doesn't play Vardy on, because he said before the City game, he said the timing of our games is ridiculous. I can't play everyone all the while. I'm gonna have to rest Jamie Vardy over the Christmas period, and I just wonder if you're looking at this game. Yeah, it's a massive game for them. But I think he's looking at it thinking, well, as you just said, I'd rather play him away at West Ham when I know we're going to get something out of him than try and make him run Virgil. I don't know. I think it's a dead interesting game, and I think it's
harder for them. I agree with you. I think it's harder for them. They've got to play 26th, 28th first. They've got a job to do, which is to finish top 4. Because in the same way as Adam just said about us, you know, the idea that if we beat Leicester, it then feels as though we've got to lose it. From a Leicester point of view, if you're Rodgers right now, the thing you don't want to throw away is top four. You know, it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things whether you finish ahead of City and Chelsea. Not really, but it matters if suddenly you come fifth. It matters if Tottenham get ahead of you.
I think he'll absolutely play Vardy.
I think he probably will.
I'll be amazed. He has spoken about resting, but
I reckon Vardy will demand he plays Vardy.
It won't come in this match. Yeah. And Vardy's record against the big sides is really, really good as well. So I can't imagine a scene or scenario, I should say, where he goes into this game without him.
I'd quite like Vardy to get off his ban or something. But he will anyway, yeah.
Listen, Liverpool's job on Boxing Day, it's just to kill hope. Because if you beat Leicester, they're fucking done. Their race is done. If you were to lose to Leicester, all of a sudden it's back down to single figures, all right, game in hand. And City can get it down to single figures as well because they go to Wolves the following night. But if you beat Leicester, because there'll be the odd City fan, and Guardiola probably in the back of his mind, he probably knows it's done, but there'll be a little thing where he thinks,
if Liverpool have a bad Christmas,
if we can get it to 8 points,
you can change.
We can get it to 8 points. We turn the screw. You know, anything can happen in football. But if Liverpool go to Leicester and beat them, as far as Rodgers is concerned, he knows he's not fucking catching Liverpool with 13 points. And Guardiola, deep down, will know it's absolutely fucking done. And those players will know it's done as well. So they can try and convince the fans, convince themselves otherwise. But if Liverpool all of a sudden go 14 clear of City and they've got to go to Wolves the next night, I mean, that feels fucking like hard work as well. There's just too much of a gap. And because of the way Liverpool performed over the last 2 years, you know they're not going to drop that many points. But if we give them a sniff, then, you know, stranger things can happen. So Thursday is about just killing that hope.
We've been in here for ages. There's another show to come. But I do want to hear what your teams are. I know that's a really difficult... I'll do it in 3 different questions, but because I know that obviously the sports science that we don't have access to. There's question marks around Oxlade-Chamberlain, how fit is he, etc., etc. So there's question marks on. So I know you can't. You know, where is Wijnaldum? But I want to be really clear about this. Is everybody picking a back five of Alisson, Alexander-Arnold, Gomez, Van Dijk, and Robertson?
100%. Yeah.
No one's messing about.
No. There's no change to make there.
There's no change to make.
I think it's full pelt.
Everyone picking the front 3.
Yeah.
Everyone's picking Jordan Henderson.
Yeah.
Okay. Who are the other 2?
Wijnaldum, if he as long as he's 95% fit, Wijnaldum.
I think he's held Wijnaldum.
Keita.
Yeah.
I think it's Milner, Wijnaldum.
Wijnaldum.
I think he'll pick Keita, but I would pick Milner.
I'd go Wijnaldum, Keita. I think he's purposely held Wijnaldum back. He was in the red zone, Wijnaldum a little bit. He maybe could have come on the other night. I think he was on the bench, wasn't he? But there was no chance of risking him, no point in risking him. I'd go Wijnaldum, and I think Keita's done enough in recent games to warrant a place as well.
I think he'll go Wijnaldum, Milner with Henderson, but I would go Keita over Milner. Yeah,
and you'd go Milner.
Yeah, I think it's Milner. I think Keita's played a lot of games in success.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's Milner. I think he probably will edge Milner, but I'd definitely go Keita.
I think he might go Lallana. I think he might go Wijnaldum, Lallana. But that's just me. I think
everyone's head will fall off again.
I know.
We'll win and everyone will be like, oh, damn, we all know.
Oh, yeah. There we are.
Yeah, again, you little tinker.
You take nothing else from this show. Take the fact that Jurgen Klopp's a little tinker. Take that home with you. Liverpool are the World Club Championships. There's never been a better time to support Liverpool. We touched on the Chelsea-Tottenham match in terms of the ridiculousness of things that came out of Martin Tyler's mouth. Obviously, there was the wider conversation about the racial incidents around that. We did a special on race with reference to Liverpool supporters that I'll make sure someone makes easy to find on social media for you if you want to give that a little bit of a listen. And it's something that we will touch on, I think, in the new year again and return to and get a couple of contributors on and work from there all around. Also, if you are interested in listening to more Anfield Wrap stuff, you know where we are. It's theanfieldwrap.com. You can still get gift cards if you listen to this on Monday. You can still order them for gift card subscriptions. You won't get the gift card, but you will get the subscription. It's a very good last-minute present. I say that as a man who is very schooled in the art of last-minute present buying. I've already got a plan around a big Christmas Eve move.
I've got a big Christmas Eve.
Have you?
Yeah, huge one.
What time are you coming in?
I'm going to...
We shouldn't do this on air, but...
I'm doing my food shopping first at 6:30, 7 o'clock.
Good on you.
Yeah, it's good.
Are you in town?
I'm going to Sainsbury's by ours first as it opens. I'm like,
yeah.
What's happening?
And then you're going to get in there, but you're going to come into town and do some...
to town for 9 bells.
Right, well, I'm in town at 9 bells, and I reckon we can have a pint at 11 if we school this right.
Well, I might have to drive, so...
Well, it's one of them, going to train. Thank you very much indeed to Ben Johnson, Adam Smith, Kev Walsh, and Ian Ryan. Thank you for listening to the Anfield Wrap all year. Thank you for whatever it is that you've been up to and how you've been supporting as you do in a number of different ways. It is all appreciated. It is Christmas. It's nice to be nice at this time of year. Whatever you're doing, have an absolutely fantastic one. Look after the people around you. Christmas is different for absolutely everybody. Some people do struggle a little bit and have an awareness around that sort of thing as well. We are being the Anfield Wrap in association with The Athletic. Sign up for them if you get the opportunity, but if not, take it easy.